Hi everybody. Today we're going to be doing C words for pronunciation lessons with Laura. My name's Laura. I'm an English teacher from Liverpool, and we're going to be doing C words in collaboration with IELTS. This is through Publishing, Merseyside Publishing. So if you're interested in learning some pronunciation of C words, just stick around. I'll just give everybody a minute to make sure that they find the live okay. Excuse me. And then we'll get started. Just to remind you, today's lesson is only going to be an hour long. Usually we'd have it from 10:30 until 1:30. But we've had some feedback that people's phones have been overheating when they've been trying to watch the videos for too long. So we've decided to only make it 1 hour long now, and there'll be 3 lessons this week. So one at 10:30 today until 11:30, one at 10:30 until 11:30 on Tuesday, and one 10:30 till 11:30 on Wednesday. Should be able to find the rest of the details for those on the Facebook page, that's IELTS helpline. All you have to do is just visit that page, and the events will be along the top, and you should be able to see. And then you just click on the live when it pops up. Okay, so I think everybody's found the live okay now, so we're ready to get started. We'll probably work our way through these ones, and as we're going we'll see how far we get, but I've got the D words prepared as well if we do end up getting through them all, but there is a fair amount of them. I'm thinking we'll also have somebody to share the screen and do some pronunciation, and I can maybe correct them as well. That seemed to work well last week, so we'll have another go of that. If anybody particularly would like to be on the live, just leave a comment in the post and I'll try and sort out you getting in. Okay, let's get started. So the first word that we've got here is concession. Concession. It's a noun, which is a thing that is granted, especially in response to demands. So a concession. So you'd make a concession about maybe beliefs. You would make a concession, for example, in a professional setting, you might make a concession for somebody who's asking for a raise. So their raise would be the demands, and you would grant the raise as a concession. Okay, hope that one's clear. Move on to the next one, unless anybody's got any questions. If you do have any questions about anything, please just pop them in the comment box. Or if you have any specific words that you'd like pronounced for you, just pop them in the comment box as well, and I'll get to them. And as well, if you have any questions about something that I've already said, we had a couple of people correcting last week. There'd been a couple of mistakes on the PowerPoint, so feel free, if you've got any corrections, let me know. So the next word is confer. 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 Confer is a verb to grant, usually a title. So you would say, I would confer a lordship onto you. That would be to grant that you are a lord. Or there's to discuss. So you would confer amongst the group, which would mean to discuss amongst the group, whatever the topic at hand is. So confer also shouldn't be confused with confer, which is like a type of tree. Okay, so I'm not going to leave that on the slide because I don't want that to get confused, but that's an adjective and this one's a verb, so it should be quite obvious, which is confer and which is confer. Okay, so then we've got configuration. Configuration. Configuration comes from the verb to configurate. I'll write that down for you. Which is to arrange, to put together, and a configuration, the noun, is the result of whatever you've configurated. So usually arrange different parts or elements. So you might configurate an electrical system, you could configurate an argument, you know, so on and so forth. That one's obviously the verb form. Then next is confusion. Confusion. Confusion is the noun, and the verb form would be confuse. Confuse. So confusion is the state of being confused, mixed up, or unsure. So I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. To confuse being the verb form and confusion being the state resulting from being confused, a state of confusion. Could also mean disordered. So for an inanimate object to be confused, it would be that it's disordered. Okay, our next word is conquer. 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 So a bit of a difficult one because of that QU sound, which can be a little bit tricky. Conquer is the verb meaning to defeat, not only in combat, but also challenges, goals, aspirations. So you can personally conquer something, as well as, you know, in the military, they conquer a space, or, you know, another army. You can personally conquer something by conquering your goal, your challenge, whatever it is. The next one that we've got is conscience. Conscience, and this one's maybe the most difficult C word. Thank you for your comment. And well, thank you. I hope everybody else watching is well as well. Thank you for asking. Conscience is maybe the most difficult C word, just because it really looks like the word says science. I don't know if everybody can see that. I'll just write it out. So science. Science. And all the way up into, you know, teenagers still mispronounce conscience. It's a person's sense of what is morally right or wrong. So it is a fairly frequently used word, and very, very often mixed up. So don't feel, you know, overwhelmed by this one, because a lot of people do. You're not alone in that. So a conscience is somebody's interior, you know, voice that tells them what is right and wrong, your own feeling of what is right and wrong. So I'll just spell that phonetically for you. I do think that sometimes can help. So it's conscience. Was that? I hope that resonates with somebody. It really the difference between the phonetic spelling and the actual spelling is so different. I think that you know, that just shows how difficult of a word it is, really. So if you do need to revisit this word, you can always just click on this post later on. It's going to be posted on our Facebook page, and you can always revisit it and rewind and, you know, hear me say it over and over again. So that's conscience. Conscience, the noun. Okay. Let's not even get started with this. Well, we won't get started with it. It's not really necessary. Anyway, the next one is consensus. Consensus, which is a noun. It refers to a general agreement or opinion. So people tend to put this word in conjunction with general. So a general consensus is an agreement that's shared by a lot of people, by the general population. A general consensus tends to be the phrase, but also just consensus meaning a general agreement or opinion. Okay. Next one, we've got consequently. Consequently, which is an adverb. That's a verb that's going between two different sentences. An adverb, which means as a consequence of. As consequence of. So there's consequence and then consequently. The two words are derivative. Okay. Next up, we've got consolidate. Consolidate. So consolidate is the verb to make something more secure, not usually a material object. So it wouldn't be to fix something in place, to make something more secure in place, as in a material, physical sense. It's usually consolidate as in to make secure, to strengthen, more like an abstract concept. So I've written the example, I will consolidate my knowledge, to show you what I mean by it's not necessarily a material object. Knowledge isn't material. So I will consolidate my knowledge like that. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. I've also just had a comment for asking for the pronunciation of tremendous. Tremendous, which is an adjective meaning great, grand, huge, not always in a positive sense, but I think it's usually clear when it's not being said in a positive sense. Usually it means overwhelmingly big, but it can be taken in either sense. So it could be the positive sense. So you've received tremendous exam results, but it could also be taken as there's a tremendous storm approaching, which obviously is not, in the positive sense. So tremendous, tremendous. I hope that answers your question. Again, just to remind everybody, if you do have any words that you're struggling with, please just pop them in the comments for me. We did touch on most of the C words last week, and we had a couple of people come on live and do some pronunciation for me. So if you are interested in doing that, just leave a comment in the box and we'll make sure that you have the opportunity to do that. Okay, so tremendous. Thank you for that suggestion. That's great. And for everybody typing hello, hi, just to introduce myself, I'm Laura. I'm an English teacher from Liverpool, and today it's C words. But if we do finish them, I have got D words and D words prepared, so we'll see how far we get along with them. The next word is conspiracy. Conspiracy. Conspiracy, which is a noun, which is to refer to a suspicion, a theory, a plot, conspiracy. So you would come up with a conspiracy about another thing. So for example, I have a conspiracy about the government, just for an example. Or there's the verb form to conspire, which means to suspect, to plot. So the reason that I've highlighted the two different I's here is to try to draw your attention to the fact that the verb form and the noun form have the I's in them are differently pronounced. So in in conspiracy, it's conspiracy, like that. And in the verb form, to conspire, I conspire, like that. So just make sure that you are pronouncing those two differently, because it wouldn't be conspiracy and it wouldn't be to conspire, if that makes sense. So just make sure that you are pronouncing those two I differently in the noun and the verb form. Okay, so we've had another question. I think what you might mean is maybe Mediterranean. Maybe you mean Mediterranean. I'll just put that in the comments. I think that's what you meant. Mediterranean. Mediterranean is referring to something that is from a particular region, the Mediterranean. So I think that's what you mean. Maybe you've just misspelt it, I'm not sure. Mediterranean is how that one is pronounced. We've also had epidemic, which is very topical. Thank you for that one. Epidemic. So the epidemic, obviously, most recently we refer to COVID-19, the epidemic, which we're all unfortunately being affected by at the moment. We've also had magnanimous. Again, really tricky one, that one. Magnanimous. It's not a very common word used in the English language. There's, like I say, not a lot of people tend to use that, really. Magnanimous. Really difficult one to pronounce. Even I stumble over it a little bit. Magnanimous. Okay. So I think that's everybody's words answered for now, but carry on just leaving them below for me. While we move on to the other C words. Next we have constitute. Constitute, which is to make a part of. It's the verb to make a part. So I constitute a small fraction of the population. For example, I constitute part of this team. Wales constitutes part of Great Britain, you know, on like that. So just to be a part of. Okay. We've just had another one left in the comments. This one is potential. 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 So this one's an interesting one because, again, whilst we have potential pronounced this way, noun, potential is somebody's possible ability to do something. So I might have potential to pass an exam. Doesn't mean that I haven't passed it yet. It doesn't mean that I've passed it yet, but I have the possible ability to pass that exam. Whereas it shouldn't be confused with the word potent, which is strong, and so you might have like a potent smell, which would be a strong or overwhelming smell. So here the difference between potential and potent, you can see that the stress of the word is in different places. So for potential, it's on the T-E-N-T, whereas for potent, it's on P-O. Potential, potent. Okay, thank you for commenting that one. That was really good. Really good example. I'm sure loads of people have struggled with that one. We've also had isolationism. Again, not a particularly frequently used word. Isolationism. Yeah, I'd probably break that down into just isolation first before you go for isolationism. Isolationism is a very much more specific word. Isolationism is like the the political policy to remain separate from the affairs of like another country. So not sure that that one's going to be used particularly frequently, but isolation just by itself without the ism at the end. Isolation is just the state of being alone or in solitude. Okay. We've also had O. That one's really tricky because, of course, it just looks like well, it sounds like it's pronounced just the letter O. Because that WE is just really it's not emphasized in that word. So O. Also, I suppose you might phonetically spell it O. To owe something is to be indebted for it. So you would owe money, or yeah, typically it's owe money. Oh, okay. We've got lots of words coming in now. Thank you everybody for getting involved and for posting words that you're struggling with. It's really helpful to everybody else who's watching as well, who are probably struggling with very similar words to you. Our next one is adulteration. Adulteration. Okay, let's type this one out. So we've got adulteration, which is your word. There's adultery, adult. All very, very differently meaning words, which is probably worth pointing out to everybody who's watching. So adult, which is the bottom one, is a grown-up person, an adult, the noun. Adultery is also a noun. It's the to like infidelity of a person to their partner, adultery. And then there's adulteration, which is to worsen something or make it of a less good quality. Okay, so just note that they are three different meanings, even though the words are very similar. Just make sure that you are pronouncing those differently. Adulteration, adultery, adult. Be aware of the different meanings. Next, we have optimistic. Optimistic, which is to be hopeful or enthusiastic about something. Optimistic. You are an optimist. If you are optimistic, that's obviously the noun, whereas optimistic is the adjective. Good morning, Mahesh. Strong is the next one. Strong. Might help you just to break up that word into ST and then wrong. Strong. Okay, hopefully that's helped you. The next one we have presumably. Really tricky one, particularly if you haven't seen the original form first. So start with presume, which is the verb to assume or I don't know, covet maybe a meaning that is not yet proven. So I could presume that you're good at speaking English without truly knowing that, but I presume it because of the words that you're asking. And then we have presumably, which is the adverb, which is you'd tend to use it presumably you're good at English in that sort of sense. Okay, so just make sure that it's not presumably. That doesn't make any sense. So start with the original form, presume, and then move to presumably, because that E can really change the way that you view that word. Okay. Hopefully that's clear to everybody. We'll move on anyway. The next one, good. I'm glad that you think that that was helpful. If I'm being unclear at all, please just let me know and we'll go over it again. We've had what is the difference between discover and invention? I think maybe you might have meant discovery. I'll just pop that in the chat. Because that E at the end of discover, either you've got the verb to discover, or more likely the noun discovery, because discovery and invention are both nouns. So discovery. So the difference between the two, discovery is something that you have discovered, so you would happen upon it and research it until you find it. Something that is found is a discovery, whereas invention is something that is made. It's invented. So let's go back again to the verb forms. We've got discover, it's discovery, and invent becomes invention. Okay. So discover is the verb form, to find, and discovery is something that you have found. So for example, you would discover ancient remains. You wouldn't invent ancient remains. You couldn't create them. You find them. At the same time, you would invent the concept of evolution, but you couldn't discover the concept of evolution because it's not a material thing to be found. Okay, hope that answers the question. We have interpretation. Interpretation. Tricky one, really tricky one. Thank you for suggesting that one for us. Interpretation. Difficult because I think you can be tempted to go for inter, and then the pret part can be quite difficult. So interpretation. Again, just take it back to the verb form interpret, which is to read meaning into something that is not, the meaning is not readily available. So I could interpret a different meaning in what you're saying. So you could say, how are you? I'm okay. I could interpret that you mean you're not okay, really. I hope that makes sense. So that would be my interpretation. That's what I was coming back to. Interpretation. Okay. Then you've also asked manacles. Manacles. Very similar to barnacles. It's just got that ending. So again, you could always use rhyme words that you are more comfortable with to help you with the pronunciation of something that you're a bit unsure with. Hopefully that helps. We've had linguistics. Linguistics. Really tricky one. Linguistics. The prefix ling usually refers to language, so that's something that you can always come back to, is the structure of the word and where you might have seen it in other words, particularly in other languages. For example, if anybody knows Latin or Greek, that can really help with getting to grips with English words, because a lot of English words are based on the Latin. So ling prefix from linguistics refers to language, but it doesn't go for everything, because the word linguine is a type of pasta. So that's got nothing to do with language. So just be aware of that. Is, of course, it doesn't go for everything. Like a lot of things in the English language, there is no set pattern. That one is linguistics. Linguistics. Hi Desna, it'd be nice to see you as well. Thank you for commenting. The next one that we've got is assume. Assume. So depending on the British or the American pronunciation, a lot of Americans, oh, I've got a spot on this name. A lot of Americans pronounce it assume, assume, assume. So I would assume you are American if you pronounce it assume. It means to suspect or to make a prejudged evaluation about something. Assume. In the British pronunciation, it's assume, you. So almost as if it has the word you in it. Let's just type it out. So there's assume, the American, and then assume is the British. Again, that's the phonetic pronunciation. So assume and assume. Hope that helps. We've had dogma. Dogma. We've actually got that in the D words, which are coming up. So dogma is a principle or belief, usually religious. Dogma. Really, like, you would look at that and think that it would be a difficult one to pronounce, but it's literally spelled how it is phonetically pronounced. Then we had lexical, which again is the very same thing. It is spelled how it is pronounced, lexical, lexical. And then we have entrepreneur, which is in our E words. So if you are going to carry on watching these, today is C words, but we'll be moving on to D words and then E words. And entrepreneur, I think, is our last E word. So yeah, sorry, I'm just looking at someone else's comment. Entrepreneur. So an entrepreneur is somebody who's starting off a business, launching a business, and usually it's taken with the sort of suggestion that they're not professional in that field. So yeah, entrepreneur, really tricky one. Comes from the French entree, which is you know, to start, to begin. Entrepreneur. Okay. Then we have, somebody has commented, can you come on more than once a week? I could have been much better if you had come on for 2 to 3 days. I could have studied regularly. So to answer your question, we've recently decided that we won't be doing 3-hour-long sessions every Monday. So this session is only 1 hour long. And we'll have 1 hour on Monday, 1 hour on Tuesday, 1 hour on Wednesday. All of them will be between 10:30 and 11:30. So we've got half an hour left of this one. Hopefully that'll help your pronunciation lessons to become more regular. So to answer your question, yes, it'll be more than once a week. Hopefully that'll help. We've also had catharsis. Catharsis. So this one's more of a literary word, which is handy. Catharsis is the sense that you would usually get from artwork or a text that makes you feel a release of sadness. So catharsis. Catharsis. Yeah. So you would find something cathartic, which is the adjective, if something has made you feel overwhelmingly sad, catharsis. Okay, and with that C word, we'll get back to our other C words that are on the PowerPoint, but again, if you do have any others that you're struggling with, just leave them for me and we will get to them. Okay, so our next word is contention. Excuse me. Contention is a disagreement, an opinion or theory. So I hold it in contention. So I disagree about this. That people should not eat meat. So I hold it in contention. So either we can be in contention about something, which is we can disagree about something. So me and somebody else would disagree about being a vegetarian, or my contention is that we shouldn't eat meat. Okay, so there's the difference between the two noun forms. And then I've also just put the verb form, to contend, not to be confused with content, which is the state of being happy. So content doesn't get extended into contention, it's contend into contention. Okay, because they've got the same meaning. Tricky, confusing, but that's the way that it works. Okay, so we're on word 15 now. We've got 30. So we're halfway through. Next we've got contrary. Oh, I'll take catharsis off the screen, sorry. Contrary. Difficult one is contrary. So there's an adjective and a noun form. So the noun form is the more easy one, maybe. They both have very closely interlinked meanings. So the adjective, contrary, is inclined to disagree. So somebody can be a contrary person, which would mean that they always disagree with everything that everybody else says. Or something can be on the contrary, which would mean the opposite. So that would be the noun form. Hopefully that makes sense. You can see why that one's a tricky one, because they are spelled the same, but there's different pronunciation. So contrary and contrary, the emphasis shifts towards the end of the word with the adjective. We've also had picturesque, which is when a landscape looks beautiful. You can't have a person look picturesque. It can only be a landscape. Okay, picturesque. Difficult with that QUE on the end, picturesque. You might find it easy. Picture, like that. Picture. Picturesque. Okay. Integral is the next one. Integral. So again, similar to contrary, integral can either be integral or integral. Integral or integral. Okay, so integral is to have a fundamental part. So yeah, so integral, yeah. So the two different ones there, integral and integral. Integral comes from integrate. I'll just type out here. And then integrity. Integral. Okay. The next one we had was tsunami. Tsunami. Why is the T silent here? Any specific reason? No, unfortunately, there is no rhyme or reason, but just for future reference, if there is going to be a T and an S at the start of a word, just pronounce it without the T. Tsunami. Tsunami. Just be aware as well. It's like, just put it in at the phonetic spelling, S-U-N-A-M-I. So tsunami is obviously like that huge devastational wave that, you know, obviously comes from the ocean when it draws back and then crashes inland. I hope everybody knows that what a tsunami is. Laura, it will be better if you extend the time to 1.5 hours each day if possible. I'll ask my boss what he says about it. At the moment, it's looking like 1 hour a day for 3 days, but I'd be happy to do 2 days at 1.5 hour each day. To be honest, that would probably suit me more. So I'll ask him what he thinks. Very nice. Accomplish. We had this in the E words. If you do, you just flip back to the A words. Accomplish. If you extend that into accomplishment, that's the noun form, what you have accomplished with the verb accomplish. Accomplish. Okay. Regionally, it might differ between accomplish with like a C-U-M and accomplish with a C-O-M. But it doesn't really matter, it still means the same thing. Oh no, I'm late. How are you? Hi Fatima, nice to see you. I was hoping that you'd pop up. I'm well, thank you. I hope you're well as well. And hello to everybody who's commenting. Hello as well. Okay, so we'll get back to our C words. We're nearly at the end of them now, and then for the last 10 minutes we can go through everybody's words again. So let's just try and power through the C words for now. Okay, so we have this one's another one where there's two different pronunciations. So we have controversy and controversy. So controversy is like an amount of drama about something. Controversy, drama, and usually in the negative sense, or there's a controversy, which is like a heated discussion about something. So you would say there's a lot of controversy around the topic of abortion, or you could say there's been a huge controversy, which would be a huge amount of drama about another topic. Okay. Then we'll go on to cooperate, which is the verb to work with. Cooperative, coordinate, coordination, and coordinator are all just words that are derivative of the verb form to cooperate. Difficult because you might look at it and think cooperate, but no, it's cooperate. So just if I hyphenate that, it might help you to visualize cooperate. Next one we have is correlate. Correlate, which is the verb to have a relation, like to form a relationship or a connection to something where one is resulting from the other. So correlate would mean that they're both the same, they have that connection. So you might say, for example, the amount of work that you undertake correlates with the amount that you get paid. So the more that you work, the more you get paid. Okay. Next, we have correspondence. Correspondence, which is the noun. It means a prolonged communication with somebody. Correspondence. So you and I would have a correspondence. Then we have counsellor. Counsellor. The noun, which is a member of a council, you know, a group of people making decisions for a given area. But it shouldn't be confused with counsellor, which is pronounced the same annoyingly, which has the S and then ELLOR form at the end, which is a person who's trained to give guidance. with mental health problems, like psychological problems. So they would provide counselling with the S, or there's counsellor with the C, which is a member of a council. Okay, the next one that we have is courtesy. Courtesy, which is a gesture of politeness towards other people. For example, holding the door open, smiling at people, saying please and thank you, a gesture of politeness. It shouldn't be confused with curtsy. So here the difference: courtesy, curtsy. A curtsy is when a woman bends her knees and bows her head in a formal way. Curtsy. And just as a bonus I've put at the end, you could say that a curtsy, when somebody is bowing like this, it could be considered a courtesy. So the polite gesture could be a curtsy. So just to confuse you all the more, courtesy and curtsy. Okay. To crawl is to move forward on your hands and knees. That's the verb, crawl. Then we have critically and critique. So critique would be, well, there is the verb, there's also the noun. So you can critique something. If you would critique something critically, you'd probably provide a negative evaluation of something. So to critique is to analyze in a professional evaluation. So somebody would critique your written work. Sorry if my voice is sounding a little bit off. Or critically can be to damage something. Critical is usually associated with like negative connotations. So critical can either mean like vital and immediate, or it can mean to be to have an adverse opinion about something. Yeah, I've written that at the bottom, to have an adverse opinion. Okay. Next, we've got crude. Crude, which is an adjective, which means in a raw state. So you could have a crude picture, would be something that's been barely started, or you could have offensively rude, usually referring to sexual jokes. So somebody could make a crude joke that you don't feel comfortable with. You would be offended by it. That's crude. Crude, the adjective. Okay, we're on our last 5 now, and then I'll get back to everybody else's words. So cue. Cue is a noun. It means a signal. A signal. So I would say this is your cue to speak, which would mean this is your signal to speak. Cue shouldn't be confused with cue, which, so sorry about the horrendous spelling of that one. Queue, which is a line of people who are all waiting for something. So queue and queue. Looks like it says QEU, but yeah, that's how you pronounce it anyway. Then we have curiosity. Curiosity, which is the strong desire to know something. Everybody probably knows curious, which is the that would be I am curious. Yes, that'd be the adjective. A strong desire to know something. Curious and curiosity. Then we have curriculum. Curriculum, which is the set syllabus of education for a pupil. Their curriculum, which is so you could say there's a particular book on this curriculum, so that book would be part of the set syllabus for the education of a person. And finally, we have cynical. Cynical, really tricky one because we have that C being pronounced like an S, and that Y being pronounced like an I. So when you see those two together, the C does tend to be pronounced as an S. So we have cynical, the adjective, which means to be distrusting of anything really. I've put human integrity because that tends to be what it means, cynical. But yeah, so cynical, you could be distrusting of anything. I could say that I'm cynical about my test results, which mean that I'm disposed to believe that they won't be good. So cynical. So that's the end of that one. I hope that this is still available to be watched by people. We've got a couple of comments saying that it's not clear, the live is not clear. I hope maybe there's not a connection problem. Just let me know if this is unclear to anybody. If you're experiencing any technical difficulties, just let me know. I'll just remove that for now so we can discuss anybody else's words, but I'll bring it back up if I do need to type any out for anybody. Sorry, my voice is awful today. I feel like maybe I'm coming down with something. Hope not, because we've got 2 more lessons this week. Okay, it's clear for you. Thank you, Mahesh, for clarifying that. So we've got, tricky one, tricky. So it might look like that one's fairly straightforward to pronounce, but it all depends on the context of the word. So content would be the insides of something, or what something is made up of. Content. So I would say, what is the contents of that box? Contents. Or a book can have a contents. So I've got one to hand, of course, because I've got so many books in my room. So you can see there, it might be backwards for you, but I don't know if you can see that. There's the content, which is what is going to be inside that book. But there's also content, which is the stress on the second half of the word content, which is to be happy and satisfied. So content and content. Depends which one you mean. Sorry if that makes it more complicated for you. Excuse me, I'm so sorry, I keep coughing. Fatima has sent us conspicuous. So conspicuous is something sorry, conspicuous is something suggestive, conspicuous. So it just split the word up, con-spic with S-P-I-C and then US, conspicuous. Okay, you can also have inconspicuous. Okay. How I will remember the vocabulary and spelling tips. So I think this is in reference to content. So I don't know if you mean vocabulary and spelling more generally, but for specifically for content, maybe we'll come up with something as a sorry, I don't know what's wrong with my voice today. Content. So content. I mean, to be honest, if you mix the two up, I'm sure people would know what you meant. But just obviously you're striving for being the best and getting everything right. So content. Leave it with me. I'll think of something and I'll do a post on the Facebook page for you specifically. or for everybody else, because I'm sure that they're struggling with it as well. So we've also, you've commented in IELTS, yes, we have cue cards. Yeah, so a cue card, yeah, would be a signal. So you'd have a card with the signal on to say, you know, say this or whatever it is, as like help and assistance for something. We have conspicuous, we've already done. Thank you, Fatima. Collocation, not to be confused with collection. Okay, if there's any other last words, just drop them in the box because we've got 4 minutes left. If you don't have the time, we don't get around to your word, it's not a problem. I'm going to be on at the same time tomorrow. That's 10:30 till 11:30. And we'll get to your word then. If you do think of any others in the meantime, jot them down and we'll get back to them. Don't forget them, because we will get to them, I promise. Sorry, I'm like faffing with my hair because it looks terrible on the new and should have left it tied up. So yeah, so we've been through quite a few today. We've got comprehension and apprehension. So tricky. Comprehension is to comprehend. We'll just, oh, I can just add it into the stream there. Okay, so the verb form to comprehend is to understand. Apprehend tends to mean to perceive. So comprehension, you would comprehend something that is to understand it, usually something that's difficult. So I comprehend, I don't know, biology, any subject, I would comprehend it. An idea or subject would be to understand. Apprehend would be to receive it, to perceive it. So you could also apprehend somebody, which is to capture them, but that isn't the same as apprehension. Apprehension has nothing to do with catching somebody. So comprehension would be somebody's understanding of something. So I have a good comprehension of biology, and it's apprehension, of which also can mean like nervous or anxious about something, is to be apprehensive. Okay, hopefully that's answered your question. Then we've had generosity. Again, a tricky one, comes from the word generous, which is to freely give away your money. It's a really positive trait to freely give away. Generosity is your quality of being generous. So you would show generosity if you are a generous person, obviously. So I think that's it for today, everybody. We're finishing in 1 minute, so I think that might be it. But like I say, please just note down any words that you can think of for tomorrow that you might want to come back to, and we will, I promise we will get to them, but just don't forget them. If you do have any questions about anything today, please just drop a message to the Facebook Live chat and we'll get to it. I can answer them. Just direct your question to Laura and I will get back to you. Okay. Thank you everybody for watching today. Hopefully it's been helpful for you. If you have any feedback at all, please just leave it in a comment. I do go through and read them all, so I really, really appreciate any feedback from you all. I do hope that it's been helpful, and if it has, I'll see you tomorrow and we'll go through the D words and any other words that anybody's been struggling with. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, bye.